Well, greetings, all of you, on this scary Halloween day. Welcome to today's Green Room, the psychology of guest loyalty. What you should know. How appropriate a topic today as we think about the things that go bump in the night. I always think that this is one of the times, especially having a couple of kids in my life, where you have to talk with them about things that are spooky and not scary, and why things are scary and why they're not scary. And then it makes me think about guests and why they think some things are, why they like certain things and why they don't like certain things, and why perhaps they preferences ebb and flow. So today we are going to dive into a few different topics because most guests are largely unaware of why they are loyal to us. And a lot of that does lie in the psychology of what we do in hospitality. So today we get to learn the reasons for why we do some of the things that we do in hospitality, in the hopes that we will become consciously competent in using psychology to our advantage, so that we can understand the guest brain to better serve the guest. So we get to start right away. Again, hello everybody. Surprise, here we are. Happy Halloween to all of you. If you can see my awesome Halloween costume. This is one of many. I'll be Ursula the Sea Witch this evening, walking around in soggy Pittsburgh with my kids. I wanted to start this way with you because it's one of the many things that we do in hospitality that we love to do, right? We love to surprise and delight our guests. And there's some psychology even behind surprising and delighting people. What is it about a surprise? So we'll get to break that down for you today. Have a little fun today as well, of course, as always. It's one of the elements of creating legendary service and blending high tech and high touch. There is a lot that we have to teach our staff in order to be able to deliver this. And we have to teach ourselves and be really aware of what is required. So let's start first with the definition of psychology. Psychology is the scientific study of the human mind and its functions, especially those affecting behavior in a given context. So think of all of the different behaviors that occur during a guest experience. Think of what's happening whenever a guest is even trying to decide that they're going to be your guest. Think of what happens whenever they are arriving at your resort or your hotel or your destination, and they're driving up and suddenly they have this beautiful entryway before them. What do they see? What don't they see? What are the people doing that they see? So the human mind is processing these things, and there's something going on when that's occurring. And 70% of buying experiences along the way are happening because of how that customer feels that they're being treated in those moments. So it's about feeling. It's not about fact. It's about feeling. So this is something that I think we all have to remember, is whether or not it's true when we are in that moment almost doesn't even matter. It's really about the feeling. So we're managing a lot of feelings along the way. Okay, so I'm going to break down a lot of different things for you. And let's just start right away with what happens in, let's start with surprise and delight moments. We love to talk about surprise and delight moments and what's happening during surprise and delight moments, right? Excuse me one second. So during a surprise and delight moment, we are catching our guests off guard. And that is probably the biggest thing that's happening during that experience that is working in our favor, so to speak. So what we have are maybe five different things that are happening there. There are five maybe different elements to a surprise and delight moment psychologically that are occurring. There's, first of all, what's called the contrast effect, meaning that pleasure is increased when a positive response follows a negative response. So let's say, for example, you've lost a stuffed animal. One of your kids has lost a stuffed animal and you've had a negative experience, but then suddenly it's been found. So pleasure increases when a positive response follows a negative response. Sometimes it could be when you least expect it. So let's say that you have you have a guest in your coffee shop and they say, "Wow, this coffee is delicious." So when you least expect it, uh, there's that surprise factor that occurs, and psychologically it kind of hijacks your brain in that moment, and that creates that surprise psychologically for your guests. A surprise also keeps your guests guessing, and what this does is it gives the power to arouse feelings of tension and suspense. So it almost creates a negative feeling instead of a positive feeling, according to a study done in 2015 by Lynn and Kilsch. So, for example, in movies or novel, tension and suspense are created in narrative plots. So almost that same thing. Surprises also question the status quo. So let's say, for example, you have a staff member or a guest that says, "Well, I've always wanted a Porsche 911." Whenever you have a staff member that says, "Is there anything else I can help you with?" and that guest gets snarky and says, "I've always wanted a Porsche 911." What would happen if your staff member decided to actually do some research and help them find a Porsche 911? Not buy one for them, but do some research and send a few links. The perceptive engagement that your staff uses almost hijacks that guest's brain because it's not something that would have happened. So that questioning of the status quo ends up creating a kind of a disconnect. So that incongruent messaging creates the surprise. We do this all the time. So interesting, right? Just something like that. So this is why surprise, the element of surprise, works. It works in a lot of different ways. Another way that psychology works for us is understanding Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You might remember this from Psych 101. And if you look at this with a more critical eye, things become pretty clear to all of us. One is that our guests have some physiological needs, and until those physiological needs are met, sometimes they can never possibly feel a connection to you. And this is why sometimes loyalty programs don't work very well, because if you have a hungry guest, it's almost as though they don't really care about the points that they're getting. So we want to show customers that they matter through esteem, right? In that purple strata there. And at the bottom, if they're tired, hungry, if you don't meet deadlines, if something comes late or not at all, if a guest asks for bread and the bread doesn't arrive, then the esteem piece, showing the guest that they matter by saying, "Thank you for choosing us," gets completely wiped out. So this is why this hierarchy of needs can be actually quite fascinating. But you can see that a lot of things have to occur in order for self-esteem, confidence, achievement, or even morality, creativity, spontaneity, more of these higher level things that occur in more luxury brands, when those peak experiences occur, you have to meet a lot of those other things in order for that to occur. So things that a lot of properties do is they make sure upon reception, let's say reception upon arrival, that they have bottles of water or chilled fruit or cold towels for guests, and especially in hotter climates, to just clean their faces, or soft seating to relax, so that the physiological needs are automatically met. They also do things to make sure that that the staff members are readily available. Speaking of staff members and psychology, let's think about what happens then when we meet staff for the first time. Well, a lot of stuff happens. And, we talk a lot about first impressions. Well, a lot of stuff is happening in that first impression moment. Emotion contagion, cognitive bias, halo effect. What? All this stuff is going on. Okay, what does all that mean? Okay, cognitive bias means that the thing that I see immediately is what creates the overall impression. So the person that I see creates the overall impression, influences how I feel about that business. So this gentleman that I see here is going to influence how I feel about the entire organization. So we're going to want people to have a positive impression of each person, which means that we're going to need to have a firm understanding of emotions, guest behaviors, and how to provide great customer service. So our team needs to be really effective in taking on a positive and dedicated attitude, of course, but we need to be able to give them the skills in order to do so. And it's not just what they say, but certainly how they look. Emotion contagion means that the quality of the eye contact, the quality of the smile is going to do a lot to create that cognitive bias. So a fake smile can do just about as much as a genuine smile, and not in the right way. The overall halo effect, which means that it's going to cloud the overall experience, which research will show you can become a key driver of a guest's overall satisfaction with their entire stay. So kind of interesting, right? That's why they say you only have 3 seconds to create a first impression, because what you see right here psychologically gets imprinted in your brain, and it can change everything because of emotion contagion, cognitive bias, and halo effect. Who knew? There we go. Are you sick of my snaky Medusa costume yet? I'm loving it. Okay, let's talk about some physical stuff, because there's some interesting facts that you need to know about some of the bricks and mortar too. So the psychology behind cleanliness. Oh my goodness. This is one of the big deals in hospitality. And here's why. There's something about walking into a crisp hotel bedroom, being welcomed by a fresh and clutter-free space. And that poses the question, does the state of a space really have an impact on the way that we feel? The answer is absolutely yes. There is such a thing as the psychology of cleanliness. There are many studies that correlate the link between cleanliness and psychological health. In 2011, researchers at Princeton found that clutter can actually make it harder to focus on a particular task. The visual cortex can get overwhelmed by objects that are not relevant to the task. Think of tchotchke. Think of little collections of things, dollies, that sort of thing. It makes it harder to allocate attention and complete anything efficiently. Maybe I should take this off. Is it distracting you? People with clean houses are healthier than people with messy houses. Did you know that? It's true. Dr. Nicole Keith, a research scientist and professor at Indiana University, did that study. And a 2010 study published in the scientific journal Personality and Social Psychology used linguistic analysis software to measure the way 60 individuals discuss their homes. Women who describe their living spaces as cluttered or full or unfinished projects were more likely to be depressed. So there you have it. Cleanliness matters. So does color. And I think this is particularly interesting. So how does color affect us? Color, as you may guess, so sorry. Let me see what's going on here. Color, as you may guess, has a lot to do with mood. So you can see that some of these the whites will tend to imply crisp and clean and freshness, where blue has a calming, tranquil effect, and reds are more kind of lusty colors. And then there is, with greens, it's more about renewal. So if you really want to influence your guests, consider the color palette that you're choosing as well. It makes a big deal psychologically. Let's see, also lighting. Lighting psychologically has a big impact on your guests as well. So color management is a big deal, and especially a lot of new builds. I think we try to upgrade a lot with our renovations, but a lot of directional lighting can help to showcase and draw the eye to certain things, as you can see in this picture. The more well lit, it's very important for our jet lagged guests that are wanting rest. You can do a lot with mood setting, task lighting. Older guests always want brighter lights. We see this a lot in our guest satisfaction research results. And soft lighting is going to help with more unfamiliar environments so that you can stage things. So have lower lighting, soft lighting in lower areas so that your guests know where they are walking, and they can create some drama in certain spaces. Okay, let's talk about sales a little bit. We have some time to discuss sales. So let's look at this a little bit. Let's look at the chart below. Say the color and not the word. Okay, say the color and not the word. So just go left and right, look at the chart. Whew, say the color, not the word. Ooh, excuse me. Let's go back for you. Okay. Green, blue, red, yellow, black, blue, blue, red, green, black, red, purple. Oof, that was tough. How did you do? So what's going on here? There's this thing called left brain, right brain conflict, right? Left-right conflict. Now, what is happening here, I think, is something that I work on a lot with salespeople in particular, because the left brain is doing something with facts, while the right brain is doing something with creativity. And when we're working with qualifying, when we're working with some factual information, the data that's presented to us, and trying to blend what we know about the client, what issues might the customer be facing, are multiple people involved in the selling process, right? Some strategy things here. Whereas the right brain is thinking about what word pictures can be used to portray our product, what visual messages are available. Is our demo set up to be visually inviting? And what emotions do we want to portray in our voice patterns? We can get really stuck. So my advice always is to write information down. Make sure you're qualifying really thoroughly, not just for facts, but also for feelings, and use your empathy skills. And you can beat the left-right brain conflict that occurs quite often, that we can get really jumbled up with. So that's a skill that I thought you might be interested in knowing a little bit more about today. Here's another one that I think is pretty interesting: social proof, for you salespeople out there. Social proof. What is social proof? It's the idea that when from customers, by experts, ratings and reviews, social media, certifications, referrals from friends, it's, I heard that this is a great product from all of these different entities. It must be a great product. So it's that idea, the psychological term for bandwagoning, basically. Everybody else is doing it, you should too. So use it to your advantage in hospitality. The benefit to it, whenever your guests know that other guests have experienced this product and they've loved it. A family just like yours was in our hotel last week and they had a fantastic time. We just had a group of girlfriends that were in for dinner the other evening, and what they decided to do was just have try one of every appetizer for the table, and they thought that was fantastic, because then everybody got a little bit of everything. It was almost like a little tapas party. Would you like to try that? That increases the likelihood that you are going to get a yes from your guests. So the use of social proof is going to help you. Also, ontology, which is the art of storytelling. This is a level of social proof in psychological terms that can engage the customer so strongly and transport them into a desire to buy. It increases connection and the likelihood of converting into a loyal guest. So for those of you that aren't really good at storytelling, hey, just let me know. You know that I have a storytelling formula for you. It's my magic formula. I'd be happy to show it to you. So let me know. Also, if you're putting together a menu of products or services, or if you're trying to stage items in a retail space, consider paradox of choice. What's paradox of choice? Paradox of choice is something that you use in menu selection. And this, I'm sure you've done this before in a store, in the drugstore, where you've looked at so many things that you end up choosing nothing, where you would almost too many choices means no choice. So consider that sometimes having fewer choices is better. It will actually work in your favor. So I wanted to give you this as a possible consideration. More is not always better. This gets us in trouble sometimes with packages. I've seen a lot of spas that over package and then guests don't buy any package. I've seen this often with menus where you see a 7-page menu and guests end up going for the same 5 things. So consider how you are actually putting together your menu so that you're increasing the likelihood that you're going to have a good, solid menu that has a lot of stars on it, that are just good sellers, instead of overwhelming your guest, overwhelming your kitchen, and increasing the likelihood that you're going to have a lot of shrinkage. Okay, so what do we do with all of these things? I think the last thing I wanted to share with you is that guests do want to learn, because guests don't know what they don't know. And it's fascinating to me quite often how little we take the time to teach our guests. And so for those of you that are in maybe the tourism world, where you work for a convention and visitors bureau, you're in a concierge role, you work in sales, remember that learning is a gift that we give to our guests. It actually causes changes in the memory campus. Enriching a mind by learning new things rewires a guest's brain. So when we volunteer more information to our guests by giving them more information about the resort or about the destination or the hotel, we give them new ideas to help educate them on the value, not on the price. And we also create a positive feeling through the rewiring process. They're happy about learning. It creates an affinity toward you and toward your product. So use that to your advantage. So new technologies like virtual reality are ways that we can start using these things, but also photos, the way that you connect them verbally to your product, talking about, I think this would be a great choice for your family. I can totally see you having an awesome time having dinner at that restaurant. Those are ways that you can do that easily. So how do you use all of this psychology? What do you do with all of this? Well, my suggestion to you is consider how you could rewrite your service standards for your staff in such a way that increases the likelihood that you can engage some of this and be consciously competent with how you're using them. So it's not just that you are using them, but you're using them with intention. That's a big difference. So a few months ago, I talked with you about how you could perhaps rewrite some of your 5 things before, 5 things during, and 5 things after. But maybe you think a little bit about, what is my intent in this moment? Is my intent during the 5 things before to surprise and delight them, so that they're thinking, ooh, what are some other ways that they surprise and delight? Because I really like this brand. And the 5 things during, is the idea here that I want to create some emotion contagion so that they see that the surprise and delight was not just a gimmick, And then the 5 things after, it's that you still belong here. So think about psychologically what you're intending to do whenever you are creating your brand standards. That's a way that you can blend all of this together. So as you think about all of these different tools and techniques and ideas, remember that we all want to belong. This is a great quote. If we want to fully experience love and belonging, we must believe that we're worthy of love and belonging. And I think that's what all of our guests really want. That's what everybody really wants. And that is what I think the psychology of the mind gives us an opportunity to consider, is ways that we can create love and belonging. I want to open it up to some questions. Take your Microsoft of mute, do a text chat if you want. We'll be open here for a minute. If no one joins in, then we'll just wrap it up early today. But who has a question or a concern or something they want to talk about? Oh, I know. You're all thinking about Halloween candy and what you're going to wear tonight. Well, I'll tell you what. This will be available to you as a recording. I want you to definitely reach out to us and consider next month's Green Room, which is generous listening for 2. So when we listen, we're not just listening for us. We have to listen for our guests as well, because they don't always process what it is that we're saying. So there's a difference between listening, hearing, and generous listening. And next month, we're going to focus on that on November 29th. Also, December 20th, mark your calendars, give the gift of feedback. So feedback doesn't have to be scary. And sometimes we equate it to judgment. And in December, I'm going to challenge you to equate that to kindness and equate that to fairness. So we'll give you some ways that we do that. Remember to join us on our social media channels. We are doing quite a bit there. Instagram is big right now, a lot going on there. LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. We'll see you there. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I really appreciate it. And again, as always, please reach out to us. Have a great day, everyone. Have a safe and happy Halloween.